How's it going, everybody? The Lawbringer testing grounds have arrived and we have quite a bit to talk about. The changes have dampened the mood a little and that is putting it nicely. The big question with every rework always is, do these changes fix the issues that the character has? Sometimes these problems are obvious, other times it's quite nuanced. To find that out, we first need to know what changed though. I will give you my take on whether these changes did their job at the very end. Another disclaimer I need to give is that I won't comment on the damage a lot. It's clear as day that these numbers are way too high and need to come down. I've made an entire video just recently with my stance regarding damage in For Honor, so it shouldn't really surprise anybody that I think most of his punishes are just way too high. But let's get to it then. Lawbringer has new chains. He's always had a 3-hit chain, and now he also gets light, 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 heavy, light, light, and light, light, heavy. Most complaints are obviously about the triple light chain. It'll never stop and it'll never not happen. Lights are evil, and despite all of them being 500 ms, they'll be horror for one group and a non-issue for others. That also means he lost the 400 ms chain top light. Ubisoft also decided to remove the enhanced property of neutral lights. Most likely so people don't have to deal with light spam after having blocked and opened a light. I personally didn't see the need for this change, but it'll make more sense later on in this video. Then there is also this little bug that hides the animation of the second light if the initial attack came from top. It's just a visual thing, but confusing nonetheless. Lights might be annoying for some, but the scary moves in his kit are certainly the finisher heavies. You want to get to them quickly, so now Lawbringer has a few options to skip parts of the chain. Not really skip, but guaranteed attacks kind of do that anyways. Opener heavies now allow for an additional light riposte from the same side that count as a second attack in chain. These guaranteed moves have advantages and disadvantages, as well as bring certain problems to the table. Damage of the initial heavy might be low, but hit stun can be extended with the light, allowing for easier ganks, but then also might cause a third hit reaction much more frequently, ending with just more revenge being fed. But yeah, it's available on all open heavies, as well as the finisher top heavy. And as I mentioned, the guaranteed light counts as a second attack in chain. Always. So it means you can loop back into the top heavy once again, and then light riposte, and top heavy finisher again. That top heavy finisher has been sped up slightly from 1100 to 1000 ms. Additionally, it got a Softfeint to guard break option. Why is that important? In the current live version of Lawbringer, the opponent can early dodge the top Unblockable and then counter guard break because it takes so long for the Lawbringer to grab them. The Softfeint is now a reliable way to punish those early dodges. But what about that loop in top heavy? How reliable is it for ganking? Because you do access the ad mortem from parries as well, so it's an infinite unblockable loop. In theory, you can infinitely confirm it, if the other person doesn't know what they're doing. But parrying or blocking the light confirm is very much possible. Still, kind of looks funny, but it doesn't really serve a purpose since it is extremely predictable. Before we talk Hyperarmor, let's quickly talk side unblockable as well. This is your bread and butter in teamfights. It is a very, very good hitbox. It's unblockable, it has decent range, and Hyperarmor at 100 ms to trade. This one is one of the more overtuned moves in his kit now. The recovery also went down ever so slightly, but that's a topic we've been debating to death for a long time now. Getting punished for hitting a finisher. Oh well, maybe another time again. But yeah, Hyperarmor. The one thing that people have always wanted. Now all chain heavies and heavy finishes have it at 100 ms into the move. The best Hyperarmor they could hope for, including the unblockables for some reason. Only chargeable heavies and pirate have armored unblockables. None of these even hold a candle to what Lawbringer has now. The side heavies are insanely strong, and if the top one is target swapped to someone hell-bent on interrupting, then they're also in for a world of hurt. But that's pretty much only one conclusion here. Side finishes need to lose the Hyperarmor. Top can keep it for all I care, same as the normal chain heavies obviously. But the side unblockables are way too overtuned with the property. Okay, let's get the in-chain bash out of the way then. Chain shove has been replaced with this. It's an 800 ms feintable bash that confirms a light attack. Feintable bashes have become a new trend lately and quite a few heroes have them now. Many also confirm a heavy, but not all of them, like look at Conqueror. But the elephant in the room here is not the functionality, but the animation. There is no way this can stay like this. I am not someone that often complains about animations, at least I don't think I do. This here, we can't have a character have a seizure like this. That's really all I have to say here. Feintable bash or not, I don't really care. Just not like this. But for a few war numbers, the recoveries are quite low on the move with 700 ms for everything. Dodging and guard breaking will probably not happen unless you manage to really early dodge it. But since the in-chain bash is only accessible after heavy, you are in a medium hit reaction and can't really dodge early. The other bash that has seen changes was Longarm. Longarm has always had the issue of being unsafe to use. Depending on how the Lawbringer decided to punish the target, it either opened him up for a guard break, unless he chained, or it allowed for an uncounterable light attack. This light is always guaranteed on life at the moment. The Lawbringer cannot do anything against it. Not chain fast enough, not block, nor parry. And these issues have been addressed. Two changes here. Pin duration moved up, and the most notable thing, Lawbringer can start his heavy much earlier now. This makes the punish completely safe now. Only a delayed top heavy with delayed extra riposte without chaining allows for a guard break. But at this point, it's on the Lawbringer himself, in my opinion. That's not an issue of Longarm. Now, as many of you know, Longarm is accessible from a guard break. This has been a thing since release, but was obviously useless except for specific ganks, but even then, multiple heavies off the guard break are most likely preferable. To do this, you press heavy and Longarm at the same time. I've shown this in all the tip videos, so most of you should be familiar with this input. Now, this allows for the 27 damage guard break. I said I won't talk about damage numbers, but since it's not a damage issue per se, but a move that shouldn't be possible, I'll make an exception. Yeah, it takes a bit of extra stamina, but I think this needs to go now. It was fun while it lasted, but now it actually creates a problem. Now, regarding ganks with the move, so what I first tried is whether I can delay my heavy and light riposte long enough to cause a first hit stun. But wake up from the target won't allow for it. I either hit too early and thus hit wake up armor, or late enough that the target can block it. The riposte always comes from the same side as the heavy, so you know where to block in case someone delays it by that much. And because of that very reason, Longarm is a really underwhelming ganking tool, and that is putting it nicely. You can try and confirm the follow-up Unblockable with a bash, or you can try and weave in an extra heavy and delay the riposte, so it would not cause third hit stun, and then confirm a chain bash of someone. There are possibilities to brute force it, but neither of these is particularly effective. That goes both for damage and the amount of revenge you feed. You also do not get any fancy extra pin or anything of that sort. He's quite underwhelming overall when it comes to ganks. But you can also look at it from the perspective that it's good that it didn't introduce something completely busted. It's however you look at ganking. And Longarm doesn't fill that ganking role, but I'm also unsure what Longarm is supposed to do in the first place. Then Impale. In terms of how you get it, nothing changed, either unlock sprint or after a parry. You can still impale after a heavy parry. Damage is 1, and there is now a new way of wall splatting. You need to run the target into the wall. You cannot release early. I've heard some reports of like very last minute releases causing wall splat, but I don't know, I couldn't reproduce it. To be on the safe side, you just run the target into the wall, no early releasing. If you release early, opponent will just stumble a little, but not wall splat. You get this new animation here to indicate you did it correctly. The wall splat still guarantees a top heavy, but because of this new exit animation, you do not return to proper neutral, meaning you cannot long arm after an impale wall splat anymore. This is something I was worried about initially when I saw the rework presented on the Warriors Den, so that's a pretty good change. But this new exit animation also leaves you vulnerable for quite a while. We're looking at 1300 MS for guard break and dodging, and I assume it's 1100 MS for guard swap, but I also got a 1133 value, so let's just assume I fat fingered it. I reckon this is the compromise to stop the long arm from being the de facto best punish. All in all, I think Impale needs to disappear from heavy parry punishes. Walls, ledges, fires, and spikes are so common on all maps, and Lawbringer will reach one of them almost every heavy parry. In the same vein, the light riposte after a parry has been adjusted slightly. It's 300 MS instead of 200 now. This brings it in line with Zerker, but Shinobi's is still faster. Damage went up quite a bit to 16. It needs to be an attractive alternative to Impale, but considering that there is no interrupting this move, and also superior to normal lights, it shouldn't do more damage as well. I'd even argue it shouldn't do the same as normal lights, especially with the chain options available. The top unblockable we briefly talked about already with the unblockable loop. The thing worth mentioning here is that it is the only move that kept its stun property. Please remove it here as well. It's great that all stuns, stamina drains and pauses finally get removed. Let's not cling to this one in the hopes that people will latch onto it and drool some character identity all over it. Moving on, zone attack. You can now use it as a chain starter. Recovery got increased to bring it in line. No longer can you bait out full block punishes and then simply parry them. This will be an exclusive thing to Centurion now. But you can continue your chain into a Hyperarmor move and trade. The trade will most likely be in your favor, unless you face another Musha. Okay then, let's answer the question from the beginning of the video. Did this rework fix the issues Lawbringer has had for all these years? And I think the answer is pretty clearly a no. Lawbringer has always struggled out of neutral. In-chain offense and punishes is what he excelled at. Stupidly high damage for no apparent reason, but he is a defensive hero. And you can still see this now with his out of stamina punishes. His throws allow for 3 attacks to hit, simply because of how long it takes for people to fall over, something that should have been addressed with the rework. There is no reason he should be able to eat your ass 3 kilometers backwards. And his neutral game is arguably worse than before with non-enhanced light openers. His shove is the exact same as it's been for months now. In chain he got the extra option of the feintable bash, but his unblockables have always been scary. He gets to them a little easier now, so it was a buff to something he was already really good at. His team fighting improved because of the Hyperarmor, but as I've said, it's way too much to have these huge hitboxes, unblockable property, and not be interruptible. So all in all, Lawbringer is pretty much the same but different. You know, like the Thais say, same but different. While I appreciate that annoying aspects like the long arm interaction, stuns and stamina drain have gotten addressed, the rework does need more. We'll see if Ubisoft has anything else in store for Lawbringer. Maybe you guys have some ideas to fix some of the issues I've listed. You know where to go. Comments below or my Discord. Having said that, hope the video was helpful. Thanks for watching. Laters everybody.